Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Good evening. Today, I want to talk about something deeply personal, yet universal. Self-help. Not the quick fix your way in 3 easy steps kind, but the real, messy, beautiful work of stepping into who you truly are. And sometimes it's dumb. We live in a world that often tells us to hide our feelings, to toughen up, to keep going no matter what. We're taught that vulnerability is weakness, that showing cracks in our armor makes us less than or unworthy. But here's the paradox. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's courage in its rawest form. It's the willingness to be seen, to be honest about who you are and what you're feeling, even when there are no guarantees of how you'll be received. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open the door to growth. Think about it. Growth doesn't happen in the safe, predictable spaces where we know exactly what to expect. It happens in the moments when we step into uncertainty, when we risk failure, when we admit, I don't know how this will turn out, but I'm going to try anyway. It's in the shaky voice as you speak your truth. It's in the moment you ask for help, even though you're terrified it might make you look weak. It's in choosing to love or trust again after you've been hurt. These moments feel like the hardest thing you'll ever do, but they're also the moments when you discover your true strength. Vulnerability is also the foundation for connection, and connection is vital for growth. When we're vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. We create spaces where real, authentic relationships can flourish. It's in these connections that we find support, inspiration, and the kind of understanding that reminds us we're not alone. But vulnerability isn't just about sharing your struggles with others. It's also about being honest with yourself. It means admitting when you're scared, acknowledging your insecurities, and facing the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. It's not easy, and it's not always comfortable, but it's necessary. You can't grow if you're not willing to confront the truth of where you are right now. The beauty of vulnerability is that it strips away the masks we wear and the roles we play. It reveals the heart of who we are, imperfect, human, and utterly worthy of love and growth. It's not about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and showing up anyway. In the end, vulnerability is what makes growth possible. It's the first step, the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it can feel like standing in the middle of a storm. But it's in that storm that you discover just how strong you really are. Every one of us carries a story, a tapestry woven with moments of joy, pain, triumph, and struggle. These stories shape us, define us, and often feel like they set the course of our lives. But too often we hide pieces of our story, especially the ones that feel messy, imperfect, or too painful to share. We bury them, hoping they'll disappear, believing they make us less worthy or lovable. But the truth is, our stories are not something to be ashamed of. They are the source of our strength. Every challenge you faced, every time you've fallen and gotten back up, every scar you carry, visible or invisible, holds within it a lesson, a resilience, and a unique perspective that no one else possesses. When you embrace your story, you reclaim the power it holds. It's not about pretending everything was easy or perfect. It's about honoring the fact that you're still here. You've endured, you've learned, and you've grown. And that growth, that hard-earned wisdom, is something to be proud of. Sharing your story, especially the parts that feel vulnerable, can be one of the most courageous acts of your life. It creates connection, because when you share openly and honestly, you invite others to do the same. In that shared vulnerability, you build bridges of understanding and compassion. You remind others that they're not alone, that their struggles don't isolate them, but connect them to the greater human experience. It's also in telling your story that you can begin to heal. Sometimes we carry wounds that fester in silence, wounds that tell us we're not enough or that we'll never overcome what we've been through. But when you speak your truth, you take back control. You're no longer a passive character in your own life. You become the author. You get to decide how your story is told and how it shapes your future. Your story doesn't have to be extraordinary to be powerful. It doesn't have to be filled with dramatic twists or heroic feats. The power of your story lies in its authenticity. It's in the quiet moments of perseverance, in the decisions to keep going when giving up felt easier, and in the small acts of kindness or bravery that define who you are. When you begin to see your story as your strength, you also start to understand that nothing you've been through is wasted. Every chapter, even the painful ones, has contributed to the person you are today. And while you may not have chosen every part of your story, you do have the power to choose what you do with it. So embrace your story, all of it. Own the parts that make you proud and the parts that taught you hard lessons. Let it be the foundation of your strength, the proof of your resilience, and the connection point to others. Your story matters, not just because it shaped you, but because it has the power to inspire and empower those around you. There's a belief many of us carry, often without realizing it. The idea that if we can just get everything right, if we can be perfect enough, then we'll finally be worthy of love, success, respect, or even just belonging. Perfectionism whispers promises of approval and admiration, but the truth is, it's a never-ending chase. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how carefully you curate your life, perfection always moves the finish line just out of reach. Perfectionism isn't about striving to do your best. It's about trying to protect yourself from criticism, judgment, or rejection. It's rooted in fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of making mistakes, fear of being seen as flawed. And while the pursuit of perfection might seem noble or even necessary, it often comes at a cost. It can rob you of joy, creativity, and connection. It can keep you stuck, afraid to take risks or try new things because failure feels unbearable. The truth is, you were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be whole. Wholeness isn't about living a flawless life. It's about embracing all parts of yourself, the light and the shadow, the triumphs and the struggles, the beauty and the mess. Wholeness means recognizing that your worth isn't tied to how much you accomplish or how well you perform. It comes from simply being who you are, imperfections and all. When you let go of perfectionism, you make space for authenticity. You give yourself permission to show up as you are, without the constant pressure to prove your worth. And in doing so, you allow others to do the same. Wholeness creates connection because when you stop pretending to be perfect, you give others permission to let down their guard as well. Wholeness also means embracing your humanity. It's about understanding that making mistakes is part of the process, not a reflection of your value. Every misstep, every failure, every time you fall short is an opportunity to learn and grow. Instead of seeing these moments as evidence of your inadequacy, you can see them as steps on the path to becoming your truest self. But this isn't about which mistakes you make. It's about how often you make them. Living a whole life means making room for the messy, imperfect moments that make you human. It means finding joy in the process, even when things don't go according to plan. It's about celebrating progress, not perfection, and recognizing that growth is more important than the illusion of flawlessness. When you shift your focus from perfection to wholeness, you begin to notice the beauty in the imperfections. You start to see that the cracks and scars in your life don't diminish your worth. They add depth and character, They tell the story of where you've been and how far you've come. And wholeness is about coming home to yourself. It's about accepting that you are enough just as you are, and that your imperfections don't make you less. They make you real. Letting go of perfectionism isn't easy, but it's worth it. Because when you choose wholeness, you choose freedom. Freedom to be yourself, freedom to grow, and freedom to live a life that's beautifully, authentically yours. We often think of boundaries as walls, rigid barriers designed to keep people out or to create distance. But boundaries, when understood and practiced with care, are not acts of separation. They are acts of love. They are a way of protecting the space where love, respect, and connection can thrive, not just with others, but with yourself. At their core, boundaries are about clarity. They communicate what is acceptable and what is not, what you are willing to give and what you need to protect. Without them, relationships can become blurry and confusing. Without boundaries, you may find yourself overextended, resentful, or burned out. You may give too much, hoping for approval, or tolerate behaviors that hurt you because you're afraid of conflict. But a life without boundaries is not sustainable, and it's certainly not loving to yourself or to others. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I value myself enough to protect my time, energy, and well-being. This doesn't mean you're selfish or unkind. It means you're taking responsibility for your own needs. When you honor yourself in this way, you model for others how you wish to be treated, and you show them that relationships built on mutual respect are possible. Boundaries are also acts of love for others. When you set clear boundaries, you remove the guesswork from relationships. You create a foundation of honesty and trust. People don't have to wonder what you need or fear stepping over an invisible line because you've communicated clearly. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about giving them the opportunity to understand and respect you. It's about effectively communicating your needs and requirements. Of course, setting boundaries can be uncomfortable. It requires courage to say no, to speak up for yourself, or to risk disappointing someone. You might worry that people will see you as difficult or unkind, but the discomfort of setting boundaries is temporary, while the benefits of living with them are lasting. The truth is, the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries, even if they don't always understand them at first. Boundaries also create space for deeper connection. When you're clear about your limits, you can engage in relationships from a place of authenticity rather than obligation. You're able to show up fully, knowing that your needs are being honored. And when others know your boundaries, they can feel secure in the relationship, free from the fear of unintentionally hurting or overstepping. But boundaries aren't just about saying no to others. They're also about saying yes to yourself. They give you the freedom to prioritize what truly matters, to invest in the people and activities that nourish your soul. Boundaries help you create a life that aligns with your values rather than one dictated by external demands or expectations. Setting boundaries can be an act of healing, especially if you've spent much of your life putting others' needs before your own. It's a way of breaking patterns of overgiving, people-pleasing, or tolerating disrespect. It's a declaration that your well-being matters, that you deserve to be treated with kindness and care. Boundaries are not static. They're dynamic and flexible, evolving as your life changes. They require self-awareness to recognize when something isn't working and courage to adjust as needed. And they require compassion, both for yourself as you learn to set them and for others as they learn to respect them. In the end, boundaries are acts of love because they nurture relationships that are healthy, balanced, and mutually respectful. They create the conditions for love to flourish, free from resentment or sacrifice. And perhaps most importantly, they are a way of loving yourself, honoring your worth, and protecting the precious resource that is your energy and time. Shame is one of the most isolating emotions we can experience. It tells us that we are flawed, unworthy, and irreparably broken. It thrives in the shadows of secrecy and silence, convincing us that if anyone truly knew the full story, they would reject us. It's the voice that says you're not enough, or worse, you'll never be enough. And it's powerful because shame feeds on the belief that we must bear it alone. But here's the truth about shame. It cannot survive empathy. Empathy is its kryptonite. When you find the courage to speak your shame out loud to someone who can hold your story with kindness and understanding, it begins to lose its power. The moment someone says, "I hear you, I see you, and I've been there too," shame begins to crumble. Empathy creates connection, and connection is the antidote to shame. Shame isolates, but empathy says you are not alone. It reminds us that being human means being imperfect, and that our struggles do not make us unworthy. They make us real. Empathy allows us to see our pain mirrored in someone else's experience, dissolving the lie that we're the only ones who feel this way. The process of sharing our shame isn't easy. It takes immense courage to reveal the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. We fear judgment, rejection, or that our vulnerability might be met with indifference. But when we take the risk of sharing with someone we trust, the reward is often profound. Empathy doesn't try to fix, dismiss, or minimize our pain. It simply says, "I'm here with you." And in that presence, shame loses its grip. Empathy also fosters self-compassion. When we experience someone else's kindness in the face of our vulnerability, we begin to internalize that care. We start to see ourselves through a gentler lens, realizing that we are deserving of understanding and forgiveness. The voice of shame begins to quiet as the voice of empathy grows louder. It's important to understand that not everyone will respond to our vulnerability with empathy. This is why it's crucial to choose wisely when deciding who to share our shame with. The right person is someone who can hold space for you without judgment, who listens without trying to solve or critique. And when you find that person, the experience can be transformative. Earth. Empathy doesn't just heal the one receiving it, it also strengthens the one offering it. When you extend empathy to someone else, you become a bridge between their isolation and connection. You remind them of their inherent worth, and in doing so, reinforce your own. Empathy is a two-way gift, deepening bonds and fostering mutual understanding. Shame will always try to convince you to stay silent, to carry your burden alone. It will tell you that no one could possibly understand or that your story is too much. But the truth is, the human experience is full of struggles, mistakes, and imperfections. We all have moments we'd rather erase or decisions we wish we could undo. And in sharing those moments with someone who meets us with empathy, we find healing, not because our circumstances change, but because our perspective does. Empathy doesn't erase shame, but it transforms it. It turns the harsh spotlight of judgment into a soft glow of understanding. It takes the weight of isolation and replaces it with the lightness of connection. And in the presence of empathy, shame cannot thrive. It diminishes, leaving room for acceptance, growth, and the reminder that we are and always have been enough. Courage is often misunderstood. We tend to think of it as something people either have or don't, a fixed trait that some are born with, like eye color or height. We picture the fearless hero charging into battle, the leader who always knows the right thing to say, or the person who never hesitates in the face of risk. But this image of courage is a myth. Courage isn't a trait you're born with. It's a practice you cultivate, moment by moment, choice by choice. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act in spite of it. It's feeling the knot in your stomach, the racing of your heart, and the tremble in your voice, and deciding to show up anyway. It's not about erasing fear, it's about learning to live alongside it. And like any practice, courage requires effort, repetition, and commitment. In our daily lives, courage rarely looks like grand, dramatic gestures. More often, it's found in the quiet, unglamorous moments. It's having the hard conversation you've been avoiding because it matters. It's admitting when you don't know something and asking for help. It's taking the first step toward a dream that feels impossibly out of reach. These moments may seem small, but they are acts of bravery that require strength and vulnerability. The practice of courage starts with self-awareness. You have to recognize the moments when fear is holding you back, when you're hesitating, staying quiet, or playing it safe because you're afraid of failing, being judged, or getting hurt. Once you've identified those moments, you can choose to respond differently. That choice is where courage begins. Courage also grows through failure. Every time you take a risk, there's a chance you'll stumble or fall, but failure is not the opposite of courage. It's part of the process. Each misstep teaches you something valuable and strengthens your resilience. The more you practice courage, the more you realize that failure is survivable and that the fear of it is often far worse than the reality. Another important aspect of practicing courage is self-compassion. You won't always get it right. There will be times when fear wins, when you stay silent or retreat. In those moments, it's important to be gentle with yourself. Courage isn't about being fearless all the time. It's about trying again, even when you feel like you've fallen short. Courage is also contagious. When you see someone else stepping into their fear and acting with bravery, it inspires you to do the same. And when you practice courage, you give others permission to step into their own. Your actions ripple outward, creating a culture of bravery and authenticity. What makes courage a practice rather than a trait is that it's never finished. There's no point at which you can say, I've mastered courage, I'm done now. Life will continue to present new challenges, new fears, and new opportunities to grow. Practicing courage means showing up again and again for yourself and for others. Ultimately, courage is about alignment, living in a way that honors your values even when it's hard. It's about making choices that reflect who you truly are rather than who fear wants you to be. And the more you practice, the more you'll realize that courage is not a distant ideal. It's something you already have within you. It's waiting in every moment, in every choice, ready to grow stronger with each act of bravery. And I'll take you. In a world that often measures success by unattainable standards, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that only perfection is worth celebrating. We set lofty goals, envision flawless outcomes, and expect ourselves to achieve them without stumbling along the way. But perfection is an illusion, a moving target that keeps us perpetually dissatisfied and constantly striving for more. The truth is, growth and fulfillment are found not in perfection, but in progress. Celebrating progress is a radical act of self-compassion and a way to honor the journey you're on, not just the destination. Progress is the quiet, steady movement forward, even when it feels slow or uncertain. It's the small steps you take toward your goals, the incremental changes that over time add up to something meaningful. These moments might seem insignificant when compared to the grand vision you have in your mind, but they are the foundation of true growth. Each step forward, no matter how small, is proof of your effort, your persistence, and your courage. When you celebrate progress, you shift your focus from what you haven't achieved to what you have. Instead of dwelling on how far you still have to go, you take the time to acknowledge how far you've already come. This perspective isn't just encouraging, it's motivating. It reminds you that you're capable of growth and that every bit of effort counts. Progress fuels momentum, and momentum is what keeps you moving forward, even on the days when the finish line feels impossibly distant. Celebrating progress also teaches you to find joy in the process rather than postponing happiness until you've reached some arbitrary point of success. If you only allow yourself to feel proud or happy when you've achieved perfection, you rob yourself of countless opportunities to appreciate your journey. Progress is where life happens. It's in the trying, the learning, and the growing. By celebrating progress, you give yourself permission to embrace the present moment, to find fulfillment in the here and now. But celebrating progress doesn't mean ignoring imperfections or pretending challenges don't exist. It means recognizing that imperfection is part of being human and that mistakes are an inevitable part of growth. Every misstep or setback you encounter is an opportunity to learn, to adjust, and to try again. Progress is not about being flawless. It's about being resilient and adaptable. The act of celebrating progress also builds confidence. Each time you acknowledge a small win, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of change and improvement. Confidence isn't something you wake up with one day. It's something you cultivate through practice, through showing yourself that you can take steps, overcome challenges, and keep going. Celebrating progress reminds you of your strength and resilience, even in the face of obstacles. It's important to remember that progress looks different for everyone. What might seem like a small step to one person could be a monumental leap for someone else. Comparing your progress to someone else's only diminishes your ability to appreciate your own journey. Instead, focus on your unique path and celebrate the progress that feels meaningful to you, whether it's a big achievement or a quiet, personal victory. Celebrating progress is also a way of fostering gratitude for your effort, for the lessons you've learned, and for the support you've received along the way. Gratitude shifts your mindset from scarcity to abundance, from focusing on what's missing to appreciating what's present. It's a reminder that even imperfect progress is something to be thankful for. Ultimately, celebrating progress is an act of self-love. It's a way of saying to yourself, you're doing enough. You are enough. It's a reminder that growth is not about reaching some ideal version of yourself, but about becoming the person you were always meant to be. By celebrating progress, you honor your journey, your resilience, and your humanity. And in doing so, you create a life that's rich with meaning, growth, and joy, even if it's not perfect. But in the end, self-help isn't about becoming someone else. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about learning to love the person you already are while holding space for the person you're becoming. So as you walk this path, remember, you are not alone. The work is hard, but it is worth it. And most importantly, you are worth it. Move on. Thank you.